For Sarah, understanding these biological mechanisms was transformative. The revelation that her inner critic was physically damaging her brain provided powerful motivation to change. She began to recognize that her negative thought patterns weren't unchangeable aspects of her personality, but learned neural pathways that could be redirected. With her neuroscientist's guidance, Sarah started viewing her inner dialogue as a biological force she could intentionally influence. She learned to recognize the physical sensations accompanying negative inner speech. The tightness in her chest, shallow breathing, and tension in her shoulders, as signs that her stress response system had been activated. This awareness created crucial moments of choice where she could intervene in the biological process. The mind-body connection revealed through this understanding explained why Sarah's inner critic had such profound effects on her life. It influenced her physical health, cognitive abilities, emotional regulation, and immune function. What she once dismissed as just thoughts revealed themselves as powerful biological forces, shaping her entire existence. This perspective shift highlights why understanding your inner voice means recognizing a powerful biological force that's constantly rewiring your brain's physical structure. Every thought either reinforces existing neural architecture or helps create new pathways. The question isn't whether your brain is changing, it's whether you're participating consciously in directing those changes. The stakes become clear. Either you learn to work with your internal dialogue, or it continues to shape your neural pathways without your consent. Your inner voice will sculpt your brain. The only question is whether you'll be the sculptor or merely the clay. This biological reality also explains why changing your inner dialogue feels so difficult initially. You're attempting to redirect neural pathways that may have been reinforced for decades. The resistance isn't weakness. It's the biological reality of established neural networks maintaining their dominance. Understanding this makes the process more strategic. You're working with your brain's natural plasticity. What is inner speech, beyond the voice in your head? Understanding the brain's plasticity opens the door to changing your inner dialogue. But here's the twist. That inner voice isn't just one voice at all. According to groundbreaking research by Alderson Day and Ferneyhoff, what we casually call our inner voice is actually a complex spectrum of internal experiences ranging from abbreviated mental shorthand to complete wordless knowing. And recognizing this diversity might be the key to transforming your relationship with your own thoughts. When most people think about their inner speech, they picture a single narrative voice commenting on their experiences, the verbal monologue that seems to follow you throughout your day. But this common understanding barely scratches the surface of what's actually happening inside your mind. The neural activities generating your internal experience are far more sophisticated and multidimensional than a simple running commentary. Your inner speech actually manifests in 4 distinct forms, each serving unique cognitive functions. Condensed inner speech functions as your mind's personal shorthand, efficient, quick thoughts without full verbal structure. Instead of thinking, I need to grab my keys from the counter and then put on my coat before heading out the door, your mind flashes abbreviated concepts. Keys, coat, go. This streamlined process is particularly valuable when navigating familiar routines, the mental equivalent of taking shortcuts through a neighborhood you know by heart. Dialogic inner speech emerges when you mentally argue different sides of an issue, as if distinct parts of yourself are engaged in conversation. Imagine weighing a job offer by mentally debating the pros and cons. One internal voice emphasizes security, while another advocates for growth potential. This sophisticated cognitive tool allows you to inhabit multiple perspectives simultaneously, testing ideas against counterarguments entirely within your mind. Social voices represent how your inner speech sometimes adopts the voices of significant others. Hearing your parents' cautionary tone before making a risky decision, or a former teacher's encouragement when facing a challenge, shows how our internal dialogue incorporates social influences. These internalized voices carry the distinct perspective of important figures from our lives, your mind's way of accessing external wisdom. Our wordless knowing operates without language altogether, manifesting as complete understanding without verbal structure. It's like instantly recognizing a friend's face without describing their features, or navigating a familiar room in darkness. Those moments of sudden insight, when solutions appear fully formed before you can articulate them, demonstrate how your inner communication sometimes transcends language entirely. This multifaceted understanding of inner speech has profound implications. Limiting yourself to addressing only the verbal narrative voice means ignoring significant aspects of your cognitive functioning, like appreciating a symphony while only listening for the violins and missing the rich complexity of the full orchestra. For Sarah, this scientific understanding created a turning point in her relationship with her thoughts. Rather than seeing her inner critic as the authoritative voice of truth, she began to recognize it as just one voice in a cognitive chorus. This realization created space for developing other forms of inner speech that could counterbalance the critic's negative influence. When Sarah learned to recognize when her father's internalized voice was speaking through her inner critic, she could begin distinguishing between this borrowed perspective and her own authentic assessment. She could engage her capacity for dialogic thinking to challenge the critic's assertions, or access wordless knowing that provided a deeper sense of her capabilities. The neural networks supporting inner speech have evolved to facilitate multiple forms of self-communication, each offering different advantages in different situations. By recognizing this diversity, you can work with your brain's natural capacities rather than being limited by a narrow understanding of what thinking should look like. This expanded view also explains why simple positive affirmations often fail to counteract negative self-talk. Merely replacing critical statements with supportive ones engages only the verbal narrative dimension of your inner experience while leaving other forms untouched. A comprehensive approach involves developing all forms of internal communication to create a balanced cognitive ecosystem. Consider how ineffective it would be if Sarah tried to counter her inner critic simply by repeating, "I am confident and capable." This might temporarily mask the critical voice, but wouldn't address the condensed thought patterns triggering anxiety, the internalized voice of her father, or the wordless knowing that could provide intuitive confidence. Instead, by recognizing the full spectrum of her inner experience, Sarah developed a more sophisticated relationship with her thoughts. She learned to identify which form of inner speech was most active in different situations and consciously engage alternatives when needed, switching from verbal criticism to dialogic exploration, or from borrowed voices to wordless knowing. Understanding the diversity of your inner speech transforms how you relate to your thoughts. Rather than being trapped in a single narrative, especially a critical one, you can draw upon the full range of your internal communication systems, accessing different voices, perspectives, and knowing that transcends words altogether. This cognitive flexibility becomes the foundation for sustainable changes to your inner dialogue and ultimately shapes how you experience yourself and your capabilities in the world.